Hello everyone, my name is Miss Stewart. I'm one of our assistant heads at Connaught School for Girls. I oversee the quality of teaching and learning in the school. This short video is here to support you, parents, in how you might support your children in their learning at home. So particularly since the pandemic, we've worked really hard to support your child in making sure that they understand the process of their learning, the barriers that can impact that, and how they might self-regulate. Now, the process of learning how we learn is referred to as metacognition. And in order for that to be successful for your child, they need to be able to self-regulate. Now, think about what self-regulation might look like. It means that they are taking active part in the process of their learning from beginning right through to end and even beyond. So I'm going to talk you through the kinds of things that you can do at home to support your child in that, in the same way as we are doing at the school. So first of all, removing some barriers from that. So thinking about anxiety. Now, certainly you will have seen levels of anxiety quite possibly increase in your own child as a result of the pandemic and that loss of learning. So that anxiety can be a real enemy of learning, and it makes it really difficult for your child to learn or retain information in the way that they might have previously. And so it's really important to get into some healthy routines. Certainly if you have a child who has a slightly heavier workload, whether it be because they're going through the examination process, or they have quite a lot of extracurricular things going on, it's really important that they take a break, that those things are balanced out. And as well as that, thinking about, the day-to-day well-being activities that you might do with them. You might take them out for a walk with the dog, or sit and have a chat and maybe do a craft or do some cooking with them. For me, one of the key things is their own self-talk. So our students are very quick, I think, to see what they're not very good at, and to kind of talk themselves out of encouraging themselves in their own learning. So we always ask them to think about how they might speak to a friend who is having anxiety around their own learning or their own progress, and what they might say to them to encourage them, to reassure them, to help motivate them and push them forward. And are they talking to themselves in the same way? Are they having those same positive thoughts? So that's something that you can really help draw out of them when you're talking to them day to day about their learning. Now, often the students will think about what a good learner looks like, what a successful learner looks like. And we've done a little bit of work with some of the older students around this activity. So the kinds of questions that an active learner, a learner that knows how to regulate themselves and really check in at key points of their learning, these are the kinds of questions that they might ask of their own learning. So, for example, number 3, how did my mindset affect how I approached my work? So actually evaluating the process of their own learning. Did I go into this task with the right mindset, and did that support my learning? Was I successful? Some of the other questions later on, for example, what can I or should I do next? So the learning has taken place, an activity of some description has happened. Is your child then reflecting on it and thinking, what went well there? And what could I do next? Or indeed, how can I use what I've just done successfully in a different task or a different subject? So for us, this is really what a learner is thinking about when they are self-regulating, when they are taking part in that process of learning. I'm going to break that down to 3 easy steps for you. So let's say, for example, your child has come home with some homework. It may be science, it may be English, any subject. So before they take part in that activity, have them plan what they're going to do. So talk them through some of these questions that you have here. What am I supposed to be learning here? Remember that for homework, it is supposed to really consolidate the learning in the classroom. It's supposed to build on that and really stretch them and really deepen their understanding. So have them think about these things before they begin that activity. What do I already know? What's my prior knowledge that's going to help me? So remember, with a homework, it certainly should be that they have lots of prior knowledge, and this is simply going to build and really strengthen that. What should I do first? What am I looking for in this activity? How much time do I have to do it? So planning out how much time your child needs to do that activity in order to be successful. And what direction do I think this task is going to take me in? So they're foreseeing anything that might be coming up, any barriers, for example. So that's step one, before the activity. Step two is during the activity. So they are monitoring their learning. How am I doing? Am I on track? So certainly when I'm planning my lessons, I might have a 20-minute activity and I will give the students 20 minutes to complete it. But within 10 minutes, I'm doing a quick checkpoint. I'm saying, okay, let's pause for a minute. Let's look at where we are. Let's share some ideas and make sure we're all on the right track. And that helps me in assessing where the students are formatively. And it will certainly support you in understanding how much your child has engaged in that activity. And, are they really engaging in the way that's going to support them? Have they thought about the right things? And this is a really great point to check if they are doing the right thing. So, should they move in a different direction? Should they take a different approach? This is a key time to do it. Just because they're halfway through the activity doesn't mean they can't stop and go back and say, actually, I've approached this differently. My working out should be on there. Or actually, I should have gone back and read that page in my book that I did in the lesson earlier on in the week. And what can I do if I don't understand? So if I'm stuck, what strategies can I use to get me back on the right track? And these are questions that you can help them ask themselves. It doesn't necessarily mean that you might have the answer, but it's about prompting them to really actively engage in the process rather than hitting that barrier and saying, well, I can't do it. I'll leave it till Monday, to talk to my teacher about. Help them to find ways to problem solve. Okay, so that's stage two, during the activity. Now thinking then about once that activity is complete. Okay, now within metacognition, that process of learning to learn, the key part of that, the key stage is them evaluating. So they've completed that activity, but have they completed it? How are they going to reflect on what they've just done? Make sure that there are no gaps that need filling. Make sure that they've completed it to the standard they know they're capable, with the full understanding of their knowledge already. So some questions that you want them to ask themselves. How did I get on? What did I actually learn from that? And they might want to go back to some of those questions that they asked themselves in that planning stage. Did I get the results I expected? What could I have done differently? Now, this is something that we really focus carefully on with the students regarding is here's what's gone well, here's what could have been better. And we always ask them to think about at least one thing that had they done it, it would have moved their learning on further. Thinking about how they might take the way in which they've approached this question or this activity, taken that way, taking that strategy and use it for learning later on. How could they use it to solve other problems? And of course, that's very easily applied to things like mathematical equations. Is there anything they don't understand? So have they completed this activity, but actually their learning hasn't been fully completed? They haven't deepened their knowledge in the way that they hope to. So what are they going to do perhaps today? Are they going to go off and learn some more? Are they going to go off onto something like GCSE Pod or another learning platform and really build their understanding? Or are they going to keep a note and talk to their teacher when they return to school? Do they need to go back and fill in any gaps? And of course, this is a brilliant opportunity for you to have a look through their book and ask them some questions about previous learning. Talk to me about what you did here. What did you learn here? I notice there's a gap here. You seem to have some unfinished work. Shall we do it now? Let's do it now. So, you don't need to be an expert in this subject to be able to really prompt them and get them thinking about their own learning. And really what you're doing here is coaching them through the process. You're supporting them and facilitating them to come to their own answers. Okay, now for those of you who have children in upper school, they will be very familiar with GCSE Pod. And we've done quite a bit of work with them around some key revision strategies to help them to commit their learning to memory. So the first is interleaving. We then have retrieval practice, and we have spaced practice. Now, if your child is in year 10 or 11, they have access to GCSE Pod, so all of the support is there, and you can go through those short videos with them to remind them of how important it is to use these strategies especially when they're revising and they're trying to commit some things to memory. For those of you who have children in Key Stage 3, I would maybe start with space practice. There's lots of things online, and I will be sharing more with parents as we go forward. But if you Google space practice, you will find lots of useful little worksheets for them to work through. But just start to get them to think about, where are you in your learning, and what could you be doing to improve on that? So these are just a few key things that I hope you will use at home if you're not using them already, to really support your child and get used to having those discussions about the process of their learning. And hopefully that will really empower you. If you do have any other questions, or you want any further support from the school in terms of how you might work with your child at home, please do get in touch. Take care.